One of the most striking things about the internet is the sheer sense of detachment from reality that people tend to feel when using it. Cyberbullying is one of those things that really ends up as a severe problem because of this sense of detachment, with people behaving in ways and saying things that they'd never ever consider doing or saying to their victim in the offline world. And unlike bullying in the offline world, it's impossible to really escape from cyberbullying in modern times. Everyone's constantly digitally connected, so it's not like you can simply turn it off at the end of the school day, come home, and just enjoy the rest of your time. And it's extremely sad just how much cyberbullying we see on platforms like Twitter. I've been targeted myself by some really atrocious people over the past 3 to 4 years, doing all kinds of illegal things to me, including sending me death threats and throwing basically every false accusation imaginable at me. But despite me and supporters of mine having made literally tens of thousands of reports, the platforms don't take proper consistent action against cyberbullies. And this is not just me, this is everyone who reports this sort of behaviour on these platforms. And there are children as young as 7 or 8 years old attempting to kill themselves because of cyberbullying. How can it possibly remain accepted that platforms can shrug off responsibility when tiny children like that are literally dying? And it's completely easily preventable. One of the main messages of the cyberbullying Are You OK animation is that this is extremely widespread. We see this scene near the end, where the different characters morph into Emily's position. That's to really bring home the reality that it can and does happen to anyone. How many more people have to die before responsible government steps up and enacts regulation, forcing platforms to handle cyberbullying? This is not an abstract problem. This is your brother, your sister, your daughter, and your son.
Hi! So I'm going to talk to you all a little about how the Are You OK animation came to be. Firstly, prior to this, I'd only ever worked on a small animatic project out of personal interest, so when Simba approached me with the script, I was excited to go from short cartoon-based animatic to a more detailed animation. The fact that the topic of bullying was also so close to my heart was a massive bonus. Firstly, I created a storyboard with pencil and paper. This ended up turning into a detailed play-by-play of exactly what I wanted to happen, how many frames I wanted each scene to have, and the kind of atmosphere I wanted through music and alike. In the end, I had 43 boards with a total of 130-ish frames. I say ish because along the way some got deleted, some more got added, and it kind of got a bit chaotic. After that was shown to Simba and I got the go-ahead, I slowly started working on the project frame by frame and attempted a chronological order. I say attempted because on background-heavy boards such as the street, school, and bedroom, I often skipped ahead to character-only scenes as that's what I enjoy the most, and then came back to the backgrounds later. As you'll likely notice, those static backgrounds are also used multiple times at different angles, as well as certain poses of Emily that are copied and edited for the emotions of or Emily's state of mind, such as adding tears, a hoodie, or even messing up her hair as her depression increased. This was never a project I worked on alone. I would like to give special shout out to Simba, Sodo, Redmoon, and Zavis, who are some of our wonderful admins and helped with the reviewing of different scenes and figuring out what needed editing, art, and troll text-wise. All in all, the project took about 2.5 months to draw, with the final half-month used to sequence, time, and add audio to all the scenes. Just before the audio, a mute copy of the video was made for final artistic adjustments, while I worked on finding different pieces of audio for all the different scenes. Using the very basic skills I learned in high school, I used Audacity to clip the backgrounds for each scenes. This included volume balancing birds, clock ticks, traffic, and crying. A lot of crying. Once I was satisfied with the feedback, I went about editing the frames that required it, often adding small details like posters and notebooks. When all the scenes played through nicely, it was pretty easy to add the background tracks to each act, as well as bonus sounds like school bells or mouse clicks. It was at this point I also added some very unnoticeable small audio additions, like laptop fans to the background of the fur book scenes. All in all, the Are You OK animation took just under 60 hours to fully plan, draw, sequence, and add audio. I used some new software like DaVinci Resolve for the editing process, some oldies like Audacity for the audio, and my favourite drawing app Ibis Paint X for the actual drawing. All of these programs are free to download, and if nothing else, I hope this inspired you to spread your own positive message. This is the first animation project I ever worked on, and I'm really pleased with how it turned out in the end. I was lucky enough to not experience cyberbullying until the very end of my time in high school. Bullying, however, is something I'm very familiar with. I really empathise with Emily in the scene where she arrives at school in the rain, and the comments from the internet have suddenly crept into her real life and are coming from the mouths of those who used to be her friends. Luckily, when this happened to me, I reached out for help, and I'm still here today. It's really important to ask things like, "Are you okay?" because it's often the case that people you care about are simply putting on a brave face and are waiting for someone to knock on the door of their life and be let in. Anyway, I hope the message that we share through Are You Okay makes a difference to everyone who watches it, whether that's to ask for help or just think for a second longer before sending an unkind message across the internet. You're never alone.
By asking, "Are you okay?" we want to encourage you to share your feelings and to seek support. One of the main problems with cyberbullying is that people will bandwagon with the bullies, or just sit quietly in compliance because they don't want to be targeted too. If the platforms themselves, and the governments who are supposed to regulate them, will not appropriately handle this behaviour, then we must do so ourselves. The next time you encounter cyberbullying, stand up against it, because if enough of us stand up against it, the bully simply cannot target us all. There are some popular personalities who are extremely toxic, and whose entire persona is based around cyberbullying others. Actively unfollow and disengage with people who behave like this, because you're only fueling their behaviour by continuing to quietly watch. And if you're a victim, like me, and like so many others, remember that you're not alone, and there is no shame in being cyberbullied. Your bullies are the weak ones, because they can't feel good about themselves without trying to make another person feel bad. Please keep going, tell a friend, and if you're not a victim, but you see cyberbullying, ask, "Are you okay?" 3 words that just might save someone's life.